Hey guys, Ashley here, welcome back to another video, and today it is a tips and tricks and tutorials video for you guys. I know a lot of you have been asking out there for just little bits here and there to help you out, and I've got plenty more to come. Still in the works to get things planned and prepped so it's all delivered properly to you. I want to make sure that you get the most out of what I put out there, but we're going to start with something very simple but very important. And before I start, when it comes to drawing, there are no right or wrong ways. There are so many different methods and techniques out there that work, and it all depends on you as a person and what style you prefer, but also depends on what you're drawing. And what we're looking at today is a drawing method that I think is seen widely as something that is more beneficial and focused towards industrial design. So we're looking at automotive, product, furniture, that sort of stuff. And it's working on your line quality, the techniques and the styles to better express and explain the work and the design that you're trying to put forward, and creating a style that is easily reproduced and, like I said, easily understood by those who you may be selling to or presenting to. So having said that, we'll jump straight into it. Right, so let's make this short and simple. First things first, something that a lot of people actually seem to forget when it comes to drawing. When it comes naturally, I'm not too sure, but posture is a massive key to creating a very natural and organic sketch. 9 times out of 10, I think starting off with, we always start with the paper parallel to our body. What you actually want to do, and again, this is preference, but give it a slight tilt, depending whether you're left or right-handed, to about a 30-45 degree angle. Suits me quite comfortably, but that way it gives you a nice open area to work with. You're not being squished when your arm hits your body, because as soon as my arm hits my body there, I can't quite reach this side of the page, depending on how big the paper is. So what you want that slight angle, and that gives you the full range of motion. The second thing is a massive factor in how the quality of your lines will turn out, and that's whether you use your wrist or your arm to do the drawing. Most people, when we start out, myself included, you work from your wrist, kinking your wrist ever so slightly. Now the problem with this is you might have a lot of control because you haven't got much maneuverability and leeway to deviate, but you're only going to get about 20 centimeters at most in terms of range. What you want to be doing, you want to work from your elbow, you want to plant it nicely on your desk and give a nice swinging motion, and that way you're going to get full range. And you can see the accuracy purely because I'm just pivoting on one area and don't move, the accuracy of those lines, and it's just far more comfortable than being scrunched up and working really closely in a fine area. So that is important, rule number 1. The second rule is how you actually draw. Now that might sound obvious, but depending on how you're taught, how you were, where you were taught, will depend on how you handle the pencil or a pen. When we start off, myself included, you want to be as precise and accurate as possible. So we get into the habit of trying to draw something in a very solid, single line, which can turn out very static, motionless, and quite dull in terms of its line weight. And it's time consuming, takes more effort, and 9 times out of 10, you get slight wavering and line and wobbling in your line. If you're using a pen, you might get pen bleed, so you're going to get splotches throughout the lines, and it doesn't quite work. And with that, it's taking you far longer, and you're not utilising the movement that I was talking about just now. The other way we start, and this is typical of anyone who's done an art course, art degree, art at high school or college level, and that's feathering. This is a technique which works perfectly for fine art, but when you're creating a line out of about 10 million other lines, you're not only, again, wasting time, but you're building up an inconsistency in that line. Now what we want to do is, we've all heard the term line weight, and we all appreciate it whether we know what it does or not, and I'll get into that in later videos. But what we want is, we want a simple stroke that you can see in some of these that has a thin end hit at the start and ends thin there, and then you put more weight towards the middle and it tapers out as you lift your pencil or pen off the page. So it goes thin, thick, and then thin. And you're not going to achieve that with either of those techniques that I've just mentioned. This one, because obviously you're static, and this one, the amount of times that you're repeating yourself over a single line, you're building up that line weight you're making it far too thick, and you're losing the taper at the start and the beginning. So we want to combine the two. We want to join the accuracy and the texture or quality of the feathering. And by doing so, just like before, we want to create something that is quick from the elbow and concise. Now, this is going to be about practicing how to warm up. Before you do anything, before you start any sketching session, I recommend you do this. Get a scrap piece of paper, something that you're not going to use, and you can use the same piece of paper over and over again for every single session. But what we want to do is, just like we've started here, line after line after line until you're happy. Keep them parallel, keep them strong, consistent. Try and get the line weight even, as I was saying, thin, thick, and then thin. You can also, a really good technique to build up that muscle memory in your hand-eye coordination is dot-to-dot points. And they can start off thin, narrow, and just build them up that way. So dot, dot, and then join. You can then try and join them up with a curvature. See if you can repeat that over and over again. And then spread them out as you go along. See if you can get further and further apart each time. Join multiple ones up. And like I said, this is going to build up your hand-eye coordination really well. The next one, ellipses and ovals. You can see my hand here creates the circle and sometimes the line before I put the pen to the paper. And what that's doing is, again, just solidifying that motion in my head before I commit to putting something on paper. And that is a good way to avoid creating a line or a shape that isn't what you desire. You're just getting that warm up first till you're ready, and then go, right. Now, and 9 times out of 10 with that practice, that will develop, and the same goes for any single drawing that you're doing. Now, when you're taking this, again, to build up the accuracy and the control in your muscles, what you want to do is we'll start with an oval, like so, and then we're going to work within that oval, and then again, and again, and try and keep within those lines that you've just created. That's a bit off. There we are. And like you say, depending on how long it's been since you've drawn, it will take time until you can get this to a point where you're confident and comfortable. So those are some really good techniques to start off with. And just really quickly demonstrating an automotive sketch. You can see, again, my hand is constantly moving around the page. Consistency. You build up your ground line first, and you can see the taper. Now, depending on what sort of line it is, if it's a smaller curved line, then 9 times out of 10 it's very difficult to get that in one stroke. And then the feathered line is more suitable to that. But 9 times out of 10, you don't want to be creating something that you're having to create very small, intricate little details. You want to work slightly larger across certain surfaces. Just a really rudimental vehicle here, nothing too fancy or too over the top. And you can see just implementing those lines. Throughout the drawing, and don't worry about going over the same line multiple times. That just, you can again build up the line weight. If you're not confident in adding the line weight to a line immediately, or you're unsure on the actual design itself, creating small faint adjustments can be a really nice way to build up that confidence in your design before you commit to the final line. And already the motion of that vehicle, because 9 times out of 10, if it's automotive design that you're looking to create, depending on what vehicle it is that you're creating, you want that vehicle to ooze speed and dynamism even when it's standing still, and a sketch is a great place to start that point. Any design process starts with a sketch, and if you can get that motion in your pen, then 9 times out of 10 your final piece will have a much better chance at replicating that speed and the motion that you were looking for creating in this original sketch. And again, when it comes, really quickly I'll touch on, when it comes to your sketches in perspective drawings, you can see the focus is clearly on this front 3/4 here. This is where the bulk of the weight and the thickness of those lines will appear. And then everything seems to taper off. Again, this is personal taste, but I like to do the lines that are further away towards the rear of the car in this particular sketch to be fainter, so as not to distract from the key features and elements that we are looking at in this front 3/4 here. Just like so, using your contour lines, you've created something that is very simple in form, but hopefully to you guys really expressive in style, which is what you want. Get that center line in just there. Like so. So again, I hope that was of use. Practice, practice, practice. All I can stress, and work with your arm and get your body in the right position before you even approach some sketching. All right. So I hope that was useful, and I hope you enjoyed it. Speak to you again soon. Bye.